Welcome to the Loyalty Builders podcast, where together with the top loyalty and product experts, we discuss how to maximize customer acquisition, engagement, and retention by using a loyalty engine. Building loyalty is complex, but with the right toolkit and market-proven knowledge, you will maximize the use of your products and services faster than learning from your own mistakes. Subscribe to our newsletter and twice a week get tried and tested tactics to build and improve customer loyalty. Hey everyone, this is the second part of our discussion with Thomas Rypens, Direct-to-Consumer Director at Club Brugge. This part is co-hosted by Hubert Świątkowski, our expert in fan engagement and loyalty in sports. In this episode, Thomas covers the key performance indicators his team uses to learn and grow, technology that opens the team towards innovation, and the future trends in fan engagement. So without further ado, here's Thomas.
Thomas, everything what you said is beautiful. I mean, the way you approach the technology, the way you approach to fan engagement, the way you build your 360-degree overview of your fans. This is all great, and exactly. I noticed the same. Like there are clubs who do not invest in the technology. There are clubs like Club Brugge. We invest a lot into it. So, Thomas, from the business perspective, like what key KPIs, key performance indicators, do you focus on when you measure the success of your initiatives?
There's obviously the end goals, which are not the KPIs, but we need to state them, so to speak, which is revenue and which is profit. And we do that by P&Ls for the different departments. There's estimations of what we assume that we're going to be able to take, but as you said, there's KPIs that will lead us to these goals. And for me, they're the place where for us money is to be made is very much on match day, because if you sell tickets, that's match day related. If you sell food and beverage, that's match day related. If you sell merchandise, that's match day related. But obviously, half of our revenue comes from online sales as well. So we can talk about click rate and conversion on these ends as well. But I think some of the things that we actively look at is because they're less marginal sometimes. Is for example, the attendance. So we know that what we sell to, do we sell out or do we not sell out? So the selling part of the stadium is a big one, because tickets is obviously our product where we have most margin. So we look at attendance of the amount of tickets that were sold. We also look at the released seats, and with the example I just gave from the goals, we see attendance in this. So based on if it's a top game, you will see people release their seat less often because they want to be part of that game. But then there's the middle class games, and you can see really if we made a difference. And with the gold, we've had around 16% or 18% more released seats than last season, because now there was a reason to release. That has been a KPI for us as well, to really feel, is this a game which has traction? Is this a game that doesn't have traction? And if it's a game that does have traction and the released seats stay low, we don't need to push as hard in our advertising, for example, to still sell the rest of the tickets. Also, the resold versus released ratio is something that for us is a big one, because the more tickets that get released by fans, which we push them to, because if you're not able to come, we still want to have a chance to fill that seat. The ratio of how many tickets we can resell from that is a very good indicator of the attendance. So we're not only trying to look at reactive data, so looking at the game is done and how many people have been in our stadium. We also try to look forward and really understand if with these parameters, the stadium will be, 85% sold out or 85% will attend the game. So that the resold seat, already now by gut feel, we know that if these amount of seats get resold, we know that the stadium is going to be quite full. So that is something we look at. We also look at spend per head, which is I think a big one. Not only on food and beverage, we also do it on merchandising. Something we've been starting with, and as mentioned, behavioral part is increasingly getting important for us, is the NPS score. It's something that we've launched on our merchandising shop. If you buy something, give us a score to understand the quadrants our fans are in, or in the scale where they are, if they're detractors or passives. But it's something that we want to use as a broader understanding of our fans over our complete service, and not only by just having it on one side. I think those are some of the bigger KPIs we are looking at to understand whether or not we are probably going to reach the revenue goals or the profit goals that we need.
Right. This is really interesting, and that was basically my other question. How the use of the technology, because you mentioned during this meeting, during our conversation, that you introduce multiple tools, right, from the business intelligence. You will work on the payment processing and so on, marketing automation, so on. So, if you could compare it to the time before the tech and the time it's just right now when you started to introducing this technology, from the P&L perspective and from the budget perspective, from the revenue perspective, do you see? Can you tell us how big this change is? Is it significant change? Is it something what is hard to measure? Can you give us more insights, or basically tell us whether it's worth to invest into technology, into modern approach, into modern stack, invest into future-proof solutions?
No, absolutely. I think it's been a buzzword for many years now, and I think a lot of clubs, let's say namely the biggest European clubs, might have already sometimes have been too big when data became important, so that it isn't always easy to fully let it dribble down up until reports that people really need, or at least that's what I hear in the scene, let's say. And at the same time, you have two small clubs who are quite scared to make an investment where they know they will be overloaded with data on which they will potentially then sit but don't know what to do with. It's before my time, the moment or the decision when Club Brugge made the call to really go all in with the data infrastructure. But I think it's been absolutely the right bet, because before that, people are simply comparing Excel sheets and sending or even logging into 7 different tools to try and understand. But there's no way that you're able to aggregate that and spot patterns. And that's all we said in the beginning, being able to look at a aggregated report from different revenue streams coming together on a game level or on a person level or on a segment level is so it's giving you insights that otherwise you wouldn't have. And I think if you're not investing in that, you are really steering a ship without a wheel, and that's something that for us has been pivotal, and it's really something that, coming from innovation agencies and advertising agencies before, I was quite surprised how far Brugge was when I stepped in. So I'm very grateful and taking that every day. And it is something that we have to give credits on management as well, because if you look at the innovation part of a club, you could have one guy like myself who screams every day that innovation is important, that we need to talk to fans, that we need to do focus groups. But if there's no leverage internally at the top, which allows you to put budget next to that, and if it allows you to do the technological developments, which the experts that you brought together in a team are really seeing as the next step, then I think you're not in a good spot. And that is one of the struggles that I see if I talk to other people in a club. There's a few examples of clubs who've been as fortunate, I think, as we are, to have very forward-looking CEOs and boards who understand the need of this. Probably boards who also come from the company world as well. But for us, that has been absolutely pivotal. And I think one of the main things that made this or that gave this leverage inside the organization is the fact that we've been able to visualize it. Because you can have these big data words on every slide you want, on every strategic day or whatever you want. But we now internally, we have this self-service BI which if I have a question or if I want to like dig into something or into an issue I see in the data, I can go into the data myself and really try and bring things together and say, okay, but looking over these amount of games, that really seems to be like an issue. We need to fix this. If for every question I would need to run to our data analyst to then get a query or a result or a report, that also wouldn't be feasible. Like we have 200 plus people working in the club. Then you're not solving the problem. And that's something that we've been trying to automate as much as we can.
This is really interesting. I remember when we started working with the US Soccer Federation, it all started from the analytics department as well. So it seems like the analytics department, the business intelligence department is a key player in introducing different solutions, different approaches to the sports organization. Yeah, Thomas, what you also said that you are the person that is around, is screaming that we need the data, that we need an innovative approach, and so on. So I assume that leadership, the person like you are, is a key person, and the leadership itself plays a key role in driving the change. So, how did you influence this change in the company, in your club?
Well, I hope I am. I hope I am. No, it's I think what I was also surprised in is that there's a lot of diverse people working at football club, because it's, even though in the last few years you do have sport management educations and so on, a lot of the people sometimes by accident get into this world, coming from a legal background, a finance background, coming from designer, I don't know. And I think the fact of really going for expert profiles is something that I would advise everyone to do. And yes, you need younger people, and yes, they need to have built their own experience, etc. That makes sense. But if in the leadership team you really want to make or you really want to do change management, for example, in innovation or in data or in I don't know, even marketing campaigns, etc., or branding, I do think you need to have people who work through a very specific methodology. And for me, with my background, that resides in innovation. So in that sense, it's really also about repeating, because you're not in an area where you're really schooling people. You're doing your job, and just like anyone else is doing their job with their expertise. But by repeating and by really building a strategy which consistently comes back in the things you tell the team, but also in the things that you roll out, people start to understand, I think, what you're trying to build in. And that's been something like, to name again, the design thinking methodology. There's hundreds and thousands of books you can read about this. There's programs you can follow, etc. But we don't have the time to educate everyone on a methodology or a framework. So by simply explaining this every 6 months in a strategic day, and then linking it back to some of the examples that we've been doing over the last 6 months, and by linking it back to a bigger strategy that you hopefully are able to visualize quite well to everyone, that's something that for me, and again, I hope that that's working, really gave people a different perspective to their daily job. I know already now that some people who are just as forward thinking as myself, I hope, they do link it back to the customer journey that we once did in the workshop, and they tend to think every 6 months to a year, what have we improved in this customer journey? What new issues have did come up, and how do we need to tackle that? And that it's a slow process, but there's no need to pull in all 200 people. Like, we're starting this in our area with D2C and B2B fans, and for now that works really well.
Football comes through the beautiful era of innovations. Right? When we look at the football right now, we have a lot of new cool things. Right? There is a VAR introduced. There are multiple new video streams possibilities. There is a goal line technology in some leagues. So there are things that are driving this change, right? Making the game more interesting, right? More engaging for the fans, for spectators outside of the stadium, obviously. So looking ahead, You mentioned you're a forward thinker, which is great. So looking ahead, like what future trends in the technology and in the fan engagement are you keeping an eye on? What you think will be the next great thing in the fan engagement?
Yeah, I think one thing that that stuns me sometimes a bit is that in the field of innovation or trends, watching, etc., there's still this this way of looking at competitors, of trying to be the first in whatever you do, and I get that. We sometimes want to have like this premiere as well, but at the same time, we're never battling for each other's fans. So in that sense, I think more collaboration could be needed, and as mentioned before, there's already 10, 20 European clubs I talk to quite often, and we even talk about numbers and we talk about engagement rates, etc. To just try and duplicate some of the, or even not invent the wheel each and every time. And I think there's a lot of bodies that could even do more for the clubs to really do this on a global level and let everyone flourish, because in the end, everyone wants to have a good fan experience. And whether or not our competitors in the Belgian league have a better fan experience than today or than ours, in the end, it's on the pitch where we need to win and where we celebrate our successes, etc. So I would like to have a bit more of collaboration there. I think the leagues play a very big role in that as well. If you look at La Liga, for example, and how they've been doing these tech accelerators over the last years, it's a good thing to see that there's a room for innovation in a liga like that as well. And also with the Pro League, we're also doing very constructive things on our side. When it comes to trend watching, I think I'm gonna have to use a few of the buzzwords that you've heard as well. But obviously everything that is loyalty and then has a proper loyalty engine that really understands the behavior of fans is something that we are actively looking at. When you talk about loyalty engine, you talk about gamification, which is something that we are definitely looking at as well. The gold membership is already a part of or a sense of gamification. However, we do need to look at this with a very sensitive eye, because if we talk to fans in focus groups, etc., it sometimes goes back to the fact we love everything you guys do and we appreciate all the efforts, but let us just watch a football game. Why does it have to be this complex? It's always more apps, it's always more this and that. So there's this group you can tackle with that, but there's also this group that just says leave us alone, and it's really important to bring that in the right sense. I think AI, the next buzzword in live, is something a lot of clubs are looking at. A lot of them are also definitely the big ones are already experimenting or even in production with some things. At this point for us, it's been something that we are trying to pick up on when it comes to our data, because looking at the data cleaning and segmentation, there's a lot to do when it comes to AI. I think also on inefficiency internally, it's also something that we've been looking at, because that is something that we do differently than other clubs. We don't open our ticket office for sales anymore on match days, which means that our fans already for 7-8 years, they have to buy their ticket online, so they cannot come to the ticket office anymore. That means that people have questions throughout the week, throughout the match day, etc. And we have this online platform for that. So fans can only ask us questions through an online ticketing system. And we have an SLA of 2 days in which we will return an answer, sometimes faster, sometimes, but hopefully never later. But managing these amount of tickets, these amount of thousands of tickets every week for our fans is something that also AI could play a very big role in the service towards fans. So that is something we're looking at as well. And I think one final one, which again comes close to the gamification, the loyalty, is the Web3. Trying to create spaces and places for fans to make it their own is something that definitely football is a very thankful thing in. However, sometimes I'm questioning the speed of some of the initiatives I'm seeing. Definitely in metaverse, etc. Over the last year, we've seen tons of examples, some good, some not so good. And if you start this, you need to understand that this is you are bringing a new world there. It's not just about putting out that world making the LinkedIn post of what you've done and then hoping that this world would lead his own life. There's teams behind these types of loyalty and engagement. So that is something that, with all the new trends, I love watching them. I love seeing them. I love seeing the examples. I'm sometimes jealous of the pace that some organizations can actually have with these technologies. But at the same time, with the sensitivity that you have in a love brand with fans, we do need to watch out what we choose for, and that's why talking to fans is so important.
What you mentioned, the gamification part, is something what we also noticed at Open Loyalty, and also that was noticed by a lot of loyalty professionals that we asked about the future trends in the loyalty world. The fans needs to be close to the club, right? They see themselves as a part of the larger community. They have strong emotional attachment to the team. They love to bask in reflected glory. They have their friends. They are socially connected with other fans and so on. So, how do you balance the technology while maintaining this personal touch in your engagement strategies?
That's a good one. That's a difficult one because that's what I said like a few minutes back. It's you can bring whatever technology to the fans, but there's a moment where they feel that it's too much. And I think if we talk about gamification and loyalty, one thing that we're already doing quite well, I think, compared to some of the other clubs we're seeing, is loyalty on match day. So already now, if you are a member of Club Brugge, you have 5% cashback on every transaction. You have first line on tickets for European games. You get free shipping in the merchandising shop, etc. Right? So that's quite obvious. I think where for us the big challenge, but also the big opportunity lies, is through that 1.2 million fans and the 500,000 that we know, who might be as big as a fan that comes to the stadium, but simply lives on the other side of the country, to really define that group and really reward them for their fandom, even though we don't see them in the stadium and we don't directly earn cash on them, by really getting them closer to us. And definitely when the younger generation, they will at a certain point also be monetizable through other ways, being merchandise, but also being Web3. And so that's something I don't want to be blind about. So it's not only about those 28,000, 30,000, 35,000 that we see in our stadium once in a while. For me, it's so much more about the bigger pool that we have out there, and actually bringing them into the community of those who are able to watch it every week. And myself, I know I'm an example because myself, I live an hour and a half drive from the stadium. So that is already quite the journey. But it also means that I watched the games on television before as well, because I wasn't always able to make the drive. But it doesn't make me less of a Club Brugge fan than the ones who are in the stadium. And sometimes as a club, you tend to forget that, because it's the one that buys a ticket, it's the one that buys in the shop and so on. But while there's other guys sitting in their sofa, also with a shirt on, watching a game, as sometimes even with more fire than the ones in the stadium. So that's definitely something I think that there's your balance, I guess, making sure that we have them in our community and more. And I think we need to find the right ways of doing loyalty and gamification as well.
At the end of the day, the most important is sport. The most important are fans. Right? We do sport is for fans. Right? Without them, we wouldn't have the Champions League, all the caps, with all the clubs, and so on. So, thank you, Thomas, for sharing your insights, your knowledge, for answering our questions. Eric, do you have any other questions on your list?
Oh, I believe that, it's a wrap up. I mean, obviously we could talk for hours because, this, like, I can clearly see that, Thomas, you are like a great source of inspiration. And Hubert, you've mentioned, Champions League. Obviously, when we think about football, we try to, the first image that comes to your mind is the team, are the players. But when it comes to business operations, fan engagement and marketing, you are winning Champions League every day. So, this is amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for, also inspiring our audience. I think that, we are basically good to go, but I have just like one small question to you, Thomas. Like, if there was like one tip for retailers, how to, if you want to, like, start engaging your customers in a meaningful way and actually build those emotional connections, what would be your focus? Like one thing.
I think the key word would be consistency, because the luck that we have is that every other week, fans come to our stadium anyway, even though the last week was a shitty game and we lost. The week after, they're there again because they simply love the club and the team, which is something that a retail shop doesn't per se have. If someone had a bad experience, they won't come back. So stepping away from these typical discount campaigns of one-time discount only today, obviously it works in a marketing mix. I'm not saying that, but try and really think of ways of getting fans consistent touch points where they can get rewarded consistently. And in Belgium, there's the most of the grocery stores do it these days, but going back with your app, if you're, let's say, if you're a power user, and really unlocking some of the discounts that you have when you walk in that day, but you end up saving for a bigger reward because you came back 3 times a week and you did a bigger purchase over a month. That creates consistency for people to come back, and in a sense, that could create a love brand vibe. Definitely, to name the example of grocery stores, there's prize battlers and there's also the experience stores, etc. But they all have their different ways of. But I don't always see the consistency in these programs, and that's what I would like to see more.
Cool. Thank you so much. So, it was a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise, guys. Likewise.
Wow. You've heard it. Consistency is key for outstanding performance, both in sport and business. Here's a fun fact. After we recorded this episode, Club Brugge won 4-0 over their rivals in the Pro League. Consistency pays off. Now, let's wrap up with a few action steps. If you enjoyed this episode, help us grow by leaving a positive review. Share your thoughts with us using the Q&A feature or by sending an email to podcast@openloyalty.io. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter for more valuable content related to the podcast. Have a great day, everyone. The Loyalty Builders podcast is brought to you by the team at Open Loyalty, an API-first loyalty engine that allows you to implement loyalty and gamification features into your tech stack faster than developing them from scratch.